I initially wanted to make this video in September because that would be around the time when the titular subject of this video, Nintendo Switch Online, would officially turn 5 years old. But honestly, since we are now so late into the Nintendo Switch's life, and my belief that Nintendo will probably not add any more legacy consoles onto their service without having to make an additional more expensive tier, I think that the current iteration of Nintendo Switch Online will largely remain the same from now until the end of the Switch's life. The only difference being that they'll add more Game Boy games and maybe like 5 more N64 games. So screw it, I'm making this video now to answer the question, has Nintendo Switch Online gotten better? The way I'm gonna go with answering this question is by taking a look at the overview trailer for Nintendo Switch Online. You know, the trailer that Nintendo continuously re-uploads on their YouTube channel and gets bombarded with dislikes every single time they re-upload it. And take a look at each of the features that you get with Nintendo Switch Online, and compare the features to what they were like then when the service launched back in 2018 to the present day. Also, from here on out, I'm going to be referring to Nintendo Switch Online as NSO, so if you hear me say that, you know what it means now. Alright, let's go. Ever wonder why that aforementioned overview trailer gets a ton of dislikes each time Nintendo re-uploads it? Well, you're about to see why. Even before the Switch came out, the announcement that Nintendo were going to add an online play subscription service eventually on the system was already met with unfavorable reception. Mostly because online play was something that was always given to Nintendo fans for free, but now it was going to be locked behind a paywall. I, however, still held out with some glimmer of hope. Xbox's online had always been pretty alright, and you had to pay for that. When PlayStation launched their online service back in the day, it was for the most part inferior compared to Xbox, but at the time it was free, so you can excuse it for that. And admittedly, it did improve as time went on. And right when the online started to become good, Sony then said, hey, you know that subscription service we originally offered that gave you exclusive PSN benefits? Well, now you need it if you want to play online. Sorry, not sorry. So it was with this logic that made me slightly optimistic about NSO. Back then, I hoped that the revenue Nintendo would have earned from this online service would be used to improve the Switch's online experience, and the days of spotty online game matches for Nintendo games would finally be behind us. Back then, I also hoped that the girl that I went out with to high school prom would come back after she finished her conversation with the guy she just met over at the punch table. The moral of the story is that hoping is for chumps. The Switch's online play experience has seen pretty much no improvement since the service launched. The constant communication errors were still there, and they are still here to this very day. You don't really have to look that far just to point out some examples as to how bad the Switch's online experience is. You have Smash Bros. Ultimate, which has input lag that is so bad that you can take breaths in between the moment you press the button and the moment that the game finally registers the button you just pressed a whole second ago. Or how about Super Mario Maker 2, which has slowdown that is so bad that would make the classic NES Mega Man games wins from embarrassment. This one feature especially hurts me the most because wasn't the online play feature the main reason we all bought the service to begin with? Sure, the other features are cool and all, but when I am paying for a service called Nintendo Switch Online, then I should expect the online aspect of the Nintendo Switch to be the top priority. I didn't get this thing for the sake of playing Wrecking Crew on the go. I got it because you pretty much locked my poor little inkling away from me, and you wouldn't give her back to me until I forked over some of that green paper. So yeah, the online play with NSO was not great then and still not great now. It truly is a shame because the online aspect of a paid online service should be the most important part. It should be the backbone, the foundation of a good online service, but alas, here we are, and in some way it does ruin the whole experience of NSO for me. But we still have a handful of features to get through, so let's keep moving.
Back at it again.
So the next feature you get with NSO is having access to a classic lineup of games. Basically how it works is that you download an application that contains a number of classic games from one system, like NES for example. After downloading the NES application, you will then be able to play a lineup of classic NES games available. And that's it, just download the application and you will then be able to play all the games it has to offer, and occasionally you will need to update the software whenever Nintendo adds new games. When NSO initially launched, only a handful of NES games were available, and I thought this was okay. You did have some pretty good hitters like Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3, Zelda 1, Ice Climber, Balloon Fight. It was fairly okay, but it wasn't the best. Fast forward to now, where the NES library has since then increased tremendously. We also now have SNES games and Game Boy games. The current SNES library is honestly really good. Still wish that Mario RPG was there, but hey, it's still great. Game Boy's library is still kind of small though, although that's only because Nintendo has only just released Game Boy games on the service. They will definitely add more as time goes on. Huh, you know, the section of the video has been fairly positive. Don't think there's anything that could really come in here and sour the whole mood. Alright, I guess it's now time that we bring up this thing. As many of you would know, NSO actually has two different plans to choose from. A standard plan for $20 a year that comes with everything we talked about thus far, and a more expensive standard plan plus expansion pack for $50 a year. Ooh, $50 a year. That's a lot of money right there. Well, what did you get in terms of classic games for the expansion pack when it initially launched? Well, initially you got the NES and SNES games, but now with the addition of N64 and Sega Genesis games. Doesn't look so bad at first glance, but then you take a closer look at the N64 games that the expansion pack originally offered. What is this? As you can probably tell, I was not a big fan of the original N64 lineup for NSO Plus expansion pack. You do have some good games here like Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64, and hey, Sin and Punishment, that's a pretty good obscure pick. But everything else was just kind of, not really impressive. And the Sega Genesis games are cool and all, but you can already get a majority of these games on the Sega Genesis Classics collection on the Switch, and you don't need to pay a subscription service to keep playing those games. Anyways, yeah, NSO Plus Expansion Pack's classic game library at launch wasn't so hot. Thankfully, it has somewhat gotten better. The N64 game library has seen an improvement alongside the Sega Genesis games to some extent, and now we have Game Boy Advance games added to the mix. Overall, the classic game library on NSO for now is fairly okay. Personally, I feel like accessing Nintendo's legacy content this way on NSO is not the worst thing in the world, honestly. I think the whole Netflix style of being able to play these classic games somewhat instantly works out pretty well, since I got to try out games that I would never have played if they weren't presented this way. If Jelly Boy was ever released on the Wii U's Virtual Console for $5, I probably wouldn't have ever bought it, but since it was offered as a bonus alongside all of the other SNES games on NSO, I actually did get to try it, and honestly, it wasn't so bad. However, I think something Nintendo should improve on when it comes to this feature is to release the games more consistently. Nintendo would drop like 2 classic games for NSO, piss off for several months, only to come back and add the same pitiful number of new classic games onto the service. It blows too because it did used to be consistent. Remember when Nintendo used to drop new NES games every month since NSO originally launched, only for them to stop doing that once the SNES games rolled around? Seriously, why did you stop doing that? Alright, so this one's going to be a somewhat short segment, but here we go. Save Data Cloud is pretty much exactly what you think it is. Cloud storage for your saved data for your Switch games. And yep, it did work when NSO launched, and it does in fact still work. Although even though this does work as intended, sadly this feature doesn't work with all Switch games. More specifically, the Splatoon games, AC New Horizons, and the Pokemon games don't work with this cloud save feature. I think I've heard before that this was done to prevent cheating, but like, who's gonna really bother and who's gonna really care, you know? All this does is make Nintendo's whole claim that, oh, you don't have to worry about losing your game data because NSO is here to help, completely irrelevant to those who really care about any of the Switch games that I just mentioned that aren't compatible with the cloud backup. So yeah, Save Data Cloud Backup on NSO was perfectly competent then, and it's still perfectly competent now. I just wish I can live worry-free knowing my Splatoon 3 save data won't be gone if somehow I don't have my Switch anymore. And side note, I really hated how they presented this feature on the NSO overview trailer. It's just so smug, I hate it.
But help is on the way. With Nintendo Switch Online, game save data is automatically backed up in the cloud. Even if your console breaks, your save data will be safe from harm.
Unless your save data belongs to a little game called Splatoon 3, in which case please take a look at this.
This is a certified classic.
When I was writing down the script for this video, I initially thought this would be a much more positive video to make, and it's at this point where I have to write down things to say about the NSO app where I realize that I'm once again making another video where I talk negatively about the Nintendo Switch. I don't like making pessimistic videos about modern Nintendo because it makes me feel like my YouTube content is slowly becoming like Demeech's content, and having a YouTube channel that is similar to Demeech is a fate worse than death. You're stalling. Okay, fine, I'll talk about the app now. When NSO launched, it also came with the release of the official NSO smartphone app. When it launched, it primarily allowed you to do 2 things: access Splatnet 2, which nobody ever really did honestly, and use voice chat features for compatible Switch games. And this was the only way to use voice chat features for compatible Switch games. Yeah, no one liked it, which I guess leads us to the present day. Nobody is voice chatting on NSO at all anymore. Mostly because there simply exists other methods to voice chat with people on Nintendo Switch games. This includes Discord, using your dedicated phone app, using 2 empty cans and a string, pretty much anything other than the NSO app really. Outside of the voice chat features, we actually did see an improvement on the NSO app itself in terms of game-specific services. At launch it was only Splatnet 2, but now we also have Splatnet 3, Nook Link, and also Smash World. I don't use most of these services myself, but I really do like the presentation with Splatnet 3. It makes it look like you have a little phone within your phone. It looks really cool. You can also see when your friends are online and see which games they're playing if they are online, which is an odd inclusion because that's all that the app shows you. Which friends are online, which software they're using right now, and the playtime of said software. That's it. Oh look, my friend Bud Muncher is currently playing Saturn Kagura Peach Ball. Can't really do much with this information, but it's great knowing he's doing that and has been doing that for 50 hours now. The NSO app is sort of in this odd gray area where the game-specific services and the app itself has indeed seen an improvement compared to how it was at launch. The voice chat portion of it has sadly not. So yeah, gonna leave it up to you to decide whether or not the NSO app has gotten better or not. Oh yeah, and another side note, Nintendo, I know you're really out of touch and all in terms of online features, but you see this?
Backseat players can also join in the conversation. That way everyone's having fun.
Yeah, that's not something that players want. Players don't want to hear other people's background noise while gaming. I myself should know.
Drop the drum! It's okay, nigga. I got that.
And here we are with the final feature of NSO, the special offers, which are, and I quote, exclusive deals and content with your membership. Okay then, let's see. Our first member exclusive item are game vouchers. For $100, you can get a pair of game vouchers which can be used to redeem 2 digital first-party Nintendo Switch games. you're not really saving a whole lot of money using these. At most you'll be saving like $20, $30, so not the best discount in the world. Also, first party Switch games are getting to that point now where they're getting discounted fairly often at local retailers. As of the making of this video, I can go to my local Best Buy and get Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild for $80. A better discount than what these vouchers are giving me. So yeah, game vouchers are not that great. The next member exclusive items are these wireless retro controllers that you can buy. Oh, for Christ's sakes, Nintendo, are these actually benefits you're giving me, or are these just more gateways for you to take more money away from me? I myself haven't tried these controllers out, so I can't speak from experience. All I will say though is that the prices for these things are absolutely wacko. How is a wireless N64 controller worth the same amount of money as a wireless Sega Genesis controller? And how are they worth less money than two wireless NES controllers? It just doesn't add up. Next up, we have exclusive games, and thank God you can access them at no additional cost with your membership. Wouldn't have blamed you if you thought otherwise. As of now, there's only two, Tetris 99 and Pac-Man 99. Also, yes, I am aware that Super Mario Bros. 35 was a third option that used to be there, but Nintendo has removed it, so I'm not going to include it in this video. LMAO RIP Bozo. Tetris 99 puts you against 98 other players in a Tetris Battle Royale, where you would need to do well in Tetris so you can push out trash onto your opponent's board while also doing the same to clear out any trash your opponents will throw at you. As the match keeps moving forward and more players get eliminated, the speed of your Tetraminos fall faster and faster until there is only one man standing. Tetris 99 is a lot of fun. It does get a little repetitive after a while, but it's still a really fun game and a great bonus to include with NSO. And Pac-Man 99 is more or less the same thing, but with Pac-Man. Next up is in-game items. Basically, you get exclusive digital add-ons for your Switch games. Or I guess in this case, Switch game. Yup, only one member exclusive item is offered on NSO at the current moment, and it's for Animal Crossing New Horizons. I think the idea of Nintendo offering member exclusive items for their games is honestly really cool. Hopefully they do more of that in the future. Next up are mission and rewards. So how this works is that roughly each week and month, members will be given a set of missions to complete with NSO. This includes either playing a game that supports online, backing up cloud data, or even playing a classic game from the service. After completing a mission, members will then be given some platinum points. They can then redeem these platinum points over on Nintendo's loyalty rewards program, My Nintendo, or alternatively they can redeem them to obtain a new icon for their Switch profile. Icons that are exclusive to NSO members and are based on the most recent game releases by Nintendo. I really like this. I remember obtaining and making a few icons when this feature dropped. It was really cool. And then Nintendo released the fourth wave of NES icons, which offered the sprites from Kid Icarus as profile icons. I then proceeded to absolutely lose it in a good way, went on to change my icon to this, and it has pretty much remained the same since then. Now we just wait until your Uprising design comes in so you can take your spot, little guy. And finally, we have the included DLC, exclusive to the NSO Plus expansion pack members. Technically speaking, these aren't listed as special offers by Nintendo, but they didn't fit anywhere else in this video, so I'm going to bring them up here now. These are where you're going to see the most value in the expansion pack. This includes the Octo expansion from Splatoon 2, arguably the best DLC that Nintendo has ever released during the Switch era so far, basically giving the player a new set of challenges to complete. And these challenges are a lot of fun, especially since the difficulty of these challenges are much more difficult compared to the campaign levels from Splatoon 1 and 2. It felt like everything a Splatoon fan had learned thus far was being put to the toughest test yet with this DLC. It's awesome. Octo expansion also introduces a lot of new lore into the Splatoon series. My god, dude, that was like the lamest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Hey babe, wake up, new Splatoon lore just dropped. Then there's the booster course pack from you're getting an additional 48 new courses for the game. That in itself pretty much tells you what you're getting in store for. Sure, one can complain about the visual fidelity of these tracks looking like Nintendo ripped them off from a mobile game, but hey, you're still getting a substantial amount of new content, so yeah, that's still really cool. And the Animal Crossing DLC is probably good too. I don't really play Animal Crossing, so I can't really say much about it. And there you have it. That's where Nintendo Switch Online currently sits at. After we finally took a look at everything NSO had to offer at launch and compared it to now, can I say that Nintendo Switch Online has gotten better? Well, yes and no, but meh. Honestly, mostly no. On one hand, Nintendo has done an excellent job in terms of making NSO worth it in terms of what you're getting for the price. $20 a month gets you a classic library of NES and SNES games with Game Boy games coming in the future, and Nintendo even did a great job making the expansion pack now seem worth it, with an improved library of N64 games alongside the addition of Game Boy Advance games and DLC for select first-party titles. But on the other hand, the online aspect of Nintendo Switch Online is still just as flawed as it always was. With an outdated method of connecting players online, the lack of any integrated voice chat features, and the inability to have all the big first-party titles support a big and advertised feature like cloud storage backup, the actual online aspect of Nintendo Switch Online ultimately ends up bringing the entire thing down. It's not because there are no GameCube games, it's not because I have to pay for something that was once free, it's not because Nintendo has yet to add Mario RPG onto the SNES library. The main reason I and presumably many others dislike the service is because the online aspect of the Nintendo Switch is simply faulty. While the value of NSO has gone higher, the online experience on Nintendo Switch has only gotten lower, it feels like. When the world needed the online experience on a Nintendo platform to be better than it ever was before, Nintendo unfortunately failed to deliver. But hey, we now have an official way to play Banjo-Kazooie on the go. Sometimes you just have to take the good with the bad, am I right, gamers?
Snap! Ha ha!
Ow!
I'm like a mongoose.